I walked into a technical discussion completely convinced I understood the problem. I didn't, and I wasn't listening enough to catch it. Today, I want to show you a simple technique that would have stopped it from happening and might even have made the conversation richer. Stick around. Across my career, one pattern keeps showing up. People skills shape long-term success. I've seen it in high-stakes technical work, leadership, business, and family life. This channel is about solving the people puzzle. I want to show you the simplest active listening technique I know. Count to 3 before you respond. After someone stops talking, you wait 3 seconds before you say anything. That's the whole thing. I know, it almost sounds like I'm wasting your time. 3 seconds, that's the insight. I want to walk you through why I keep coming back to this, and why most people who think they're decent listeners are skipping it without realizing it. Early in my career, I worked on a technical project where I thought I already understood the system we were building. I was wrong, and I didn't find out for a while. A colleague started explaining the characteristics driving the system design. I knew they were going to expect me to respond as soon as they stopped talking, so I started organizing my responses as they talked. I tracked the broad strokes, but I didn't catch all the nuances. Part of my processing power was already redirected. When they stopped, I had something ready. I said it. It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't right for the actual problem, because I'd missed the parts that would have told me what the actual problem was. I didn't stop listening when I started talking. I stopped listening earlier because I was operating under the default expectation that I'd respond as soon as they stopped. That expectation is what fractured my attention. It wasn't overconfidence or boredom. It was perceived social pressure. Sometimes people call this listening to respond. Then I started coaching, and I got to see this from the other side. A client came in with what seemed like a clear and familiar problem. They explained it, a well-packaged explanation, coherent, the kind of version someone's told a few times and refined. But this time, I had already made a decision before they started. I was going to wait 3 seconds before I responded, already committed. That commitment changes what happens while they're talking. If I know I'll have 3 seconds after they stop, I don't need to be ready when they stop. There's no pressure to formulate during their explanation. So I didn't. I just listened, focused on what they were saying, not what I thought about it. They stopped. I started formulating my response. And then something else happened. They started talking again. What came in the next few seconds was a different version, less polished. The edges were showing. And that was the real thing. The part they'd been circling around but hadn't quite said out loud yet. The first version was the surface. The second version was what was actually happening. If I jumped in on the first version, not only would I have been addressing a partial problem, I would have deprived them of the opportunity to go a little bit deeper. I've seen this enough times now to call it a pattern. The first thing someone says is usually the prepared version. The important thing, the harder thing, the truer thing, often comes after the pause. But it only comes if you're committed to the pause before they start it. Not just held your tongue at the end, made the decision beforehand, which means you listen differently the whole way through. The most common reason people resist this technique. If I wait, I'll lose my thought. I hear this a lot, and I've started responding to it directly. If you're holding your thought in your head while they're talking, you've already stopped listening. Now you're replaying your thought over and over to make sure you don't forget it. Stop listening to respond, and you'll hear everything. You can't receive information and draft a response at the same time, not at full resolution. The 3-second pause does 2 things. It lets you formulate your response after they've actually had their say, and it gives them a chance to add the next thought, the one that comes after the breath, the thing they've been building up to but hadn't quite found the words for yet. That second part is usually the more important one. If you really listened to everything they said, you won't lose the thought. You held it loosely enough that 3 seconds of silence brings it back. usually a little better shape than before. What this reframe opened up for me is bigger than the technique. If silence in a conversation isn't a gap to fill, it's thinking time, then it's something you're offering. Someone doesn't always have to be talking. When you stop treating silence as a problem to solve and start giving it instead, something changes. People feel actually heard. They bring you the harder stuff. They tell you what's going on, not just the packaged version. Silence isn't a gap, it's a gift. 3 seconds, 1 breath. Put your thoughts together. See if they have more to add. It'll feel uncomfortable at first. 3 seconds is long when you're used to jumping in immediately. The discomfort is just calibration. It fades. What you start hearing instead doesn't. Try it in your next conversation and see what comes after the pause. I'm curious what you notice. Drop it in the comments. If this was useful, I've got more on active listening and the other people skills that actually matter in technical work. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and check out the video on the screen. If you'd like to get this kind of thinking delivered to you, I have a newsletter called Thoughts from the Corner. Same focus: communication, productivity, and people skills for technical professionals. The sign-up link is in the description.